Game previews week 1. Going through what y'all need to know to make some money on these bitches. So, actually going through the games now. Super excited for this. Obviously doing it a bit late, but it is what it is. So, going to get right into it, starting with the Jaguars versus the Texans. And, yeah, we're going to be going through what I actually think is going to happen in the game. Obviously, the most important part of betting on it is betting on the outcome. Basically, I have a step-by-step process. I kind of start with the run game, then go to the passing game, build the puzzle, and put it together. And at the end, you come out with how good the offense is or isn't. Obviously, the most important thing is the quarterback. We'll talk through that. So, first game, Jags-Texans. This game played in a dome, so whether or not an issue here. And with the Jaguars offense, now this is going to be a weird one to start on, to be honest with you, because obviously rookie quarterback. And with a rookie quarterback, just betting-wise, just don't do it. It's not worth it, at least in their first game. Real quick, we'll know how good Trevor Lawrence and/or all these rookies are. But for now, ain't no reason to risk it like that. There's plenty of games to find value on later. But, yeah, when we talk about the actual game, this is the Jags offense, and frankly, this matchup is kind of okay for them. Here you see the Texans defense. I'm going to be jumping back and forth a little bit through them. But when you talk about this Jags offense, right, first of all, they're going to be able to run the ball at least okay. You know, they have a fully healthy offensive line that, well, is far from top tier. I think gets roasted a little bit too much. They were asked to do really tough things last year, and especially in the run game. Between Andrew Norwell, Brandon Leonard, Cam Robinson on the left side, they're gonna do some work there. And it's not like the Texans are throwing out, you know, an elite defense. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Obviously, a million new names here on the Texans, so not quite as concrete as some other defenses, but I think it's pretty clear how this is going to go, right? You look at their front four, switching to a 4-3, the Texans are, and there's just not the beef here to stop the run game. Jordan Jenkins, they bring in from the Jets. He is actually okay, I will say. And Malik Collins and Vincent Taylor are two guys that I think are NFL caliber interior players that do fine. But none of those guys are actually difference makers. None of those are going to be the reasons the opposing game, the rushing game, doesn't go well outside of maybe Malik Collins, who was pretty good. My main concern, though, is the other. Whitney Mercilus is just horrible at this point. Really bad. Dude, if you want to watch somebody get blown 5 yards off the ball every play, watch him last year. And that becomes an issue in this game. And while the Texans linebackers are improved from before, they're still not all that great. Zach Cunningham is pretty good for sure. He helps, but he's not this elite run defender, more of a useful pass guy. At least that's what makes him a valuable linebacker. Christian Kirksey is the most straight up average interior middle linebacker you're going to find. Not a playmaker though, which is kind of the theme with this whole Texans defense. So you're talking about a team that can run the ball with the Jaguars. And throwing wise, frankly, I'm not going to make too many conclusions on it again because I just have no idea how good Trevor Lawrence is. But if he just doesn't suck, there's a bunch of ways this Jags passing attack succeeds. Because, again, we start with the pass rush. I already talked about it. The offensive line is just better. The Jaguars are. Their tackles are a little bit vulnerable, and you're going to see against better teams that they'll have some issues. But against the Texans, man, I do like Jacob Martin as a rotational speed rusher, but assuming he's going to make a big-ass impact on this game is assuming a lot. And literally none of the other guys are even relevant. Jordan Jenkins is bad as a pass rusher. He's not a difference maker. Whitney Mercilus is bad, actually. Jonathan Grenard is bad. Charles Omenihu is, he could do some things as an inside-outside guy, nothing impressive. And on the interior, Malik Collins, again, is fairly relevant, but man, you're asking a lot for interior rushers to impact the game, and they kind of need to be of Aaron Donald's caliber a lot of times for them to even be notable over the result of an entire game. So that's oversimplifying it, but Malik Collins' point is not good enough. And it's not like the Jag, between Norwell and Linder, they're going to be fine. The secondary is where it gets really sketchy, right? Because no Bradley Roby, they just traded him. He was suspended anyway. You're talking about Vernon Hargreaves starting. Vernon Hargreaves is either the worst, the second worst corner in the entirety of the NFL. He's a catastrophically horrible player who consistently is the reason the defense fails every time he's on the field. Now, that sounds really harsh. I'm not going to be that harsh about very many players. That bears out to be very true about him. He just cannot stick with anybody ever for any reason. And that obviously becomes a problem when you have a primary outside corner who's consistently being beat. And while the Jaguars receivers aren't amazing, DJ Chark and Marvin Jones are guys who win, especially down the field. And their other options are pretty useful, at least to a point. Laviska Shenault is a reasonable player. They're going to use Jamal Agnew in decent ways as a gadget guy. And Tyron Johnson, being over from the Chargers, is a pretty damn good deep threat, albeit a small sample size. So they have like legitimately useful receivers. And when we talk about a defense that can't rush the passer and frankly isn't going to be able to cover down the field because of Vernon Hargreaves, Terrence Mitchell isn't a shutdown guy. They're starting Eric Murray at safety for God knows why. They're just kind of, it's going to go poorly if, again, Trevor Lawrence is even kind of okay. It's going to get ugly for them. Now, I would assume with a rookie quarterback, right, there are going to be mental mistakes. There are going to be things that limit the ceiling of the offense, but they're few and far between. Look for the Jags to be pretty successful, and they can run the ball. I have them between, I think, 17 and 24 points. Super, super rough estimate there, as that's rookie quarterback, now we're betting on. Defense, or the other side of the ball, the Texans offense. So already you're looking at offense that's led by Tyrod Taylor, which means you're just putting a cap on how successful you're going to be, guaranteed. And, well, their offensive line is maybe better than people give it credit for. Marcus Cannon hasn't played in like 2 years. Who knows if he's going to be good. And the rest of their guys are kind of in weird spots. Justin Britt also didn't play last year. Max Sharpring is okay. Titus Howard, I actually would have preferred if they left to tackle. He got way too much hate last year. Deshaun Watson makes all of his linemen look so much worse than they actually are. Titus Howard was one of the primary victims of that. He's a good player who should still be a tackle. Whatever, at guard, he's going to be a positive. Laramie Tunsil's good. Like, they have a reasonable offensive line. But it's not like they're dominant at the point of attack, especially their tackles. Laramie Tunsil way, way better as a pass protector than a run blocker. And the Jaguars, frankly, I think are kind of underrated going into the year as far as like front seven goes, because those three, especially on the defensive line, Roy Robertson-Harris, Devon Hamilton, Malcolm Brown, are fucking good, man. Roy Robertson-Harris is one of the most underrated signings of the offseason. That dude's awesome. He consistently makes plays and gets in the backfield. He's very, very, very good. Devon Hamilton, one of the absolute best rookies in all of football last year, consistently controlled the line of scrimmage, did way more than just be a big fat guy in the middle. And Malcolm Brown is a useful veteran who, while not as high end as the other guys, is still good. And as run defenders too, I mean, Josh Allen and Miles Jack are both pretty high end at their respective positions. And, you know, while the other spots are a little bit worrying, Caleb Monchesa and Damian Wilson is starting at the other linebacker spot for the Jaguars. Against this Texans team who's not going to do much creatively in the run game, they're going to be fine. So you're not looking at a real positive there. And then passing-wise, you know, it's just tough because of Tyrod. Tyrod just consistently is going to limit the ability of your offense to consistently move the ball. Now, he's not an idiot, obviously. He can do things in the flow of an offense that are reasonable. And Texans, if they have similar offensive coaching to what they had the last few years, aren't actually all that bad about scheming stuff. But, you know, it still depends on talent and guys being able to win. And their receivers, you know, Brandon Cooks is good. He's going to help, but he's not this like target monster who is going to drive an offense up and down the field. Chris Conley should not be starting on a team and is going to get like pretty meaningfully clamped by Shaquille Griffin and CJ Henderson. And while I like Anthony Miller out of this, well, Anthony Miller is a useful player at times out of the slot. He gets open among the top tier guys in the league. He obviously a lot of other problems with drops and shit that does keep him capped as a player and how good he is in your offense. But it's just, the problem is, right, all those guys have kind of caveats about being able to consistently move an offense, and especially against a secondary that, while not amazing, can meaningfully match up with them. CJ Henderson is a good player. Tyson Campbell is a rookie. You know, we'll see about that one. But him playing because Trey Herndon, their normal slot corner, is out, which is a good thing for the Jaguars. Trey Herndon is bad. So, you know, they're fine. And it's not like, so I got to mention, right, that they are starting Andrew Wingard at safety, the Jaguars, which is one of the stupidest, maybe the stupidest and worst decision you will see of any team in week one. Andrew Wingard is the worst player in football. That's funny that I catch two of the most negative players in the entirety of the league in the first preview. Normally I'm not this mad about stuff. This is the exception. Andrew Wingard is really, really, really bad. And every time he's on the field, similar to Vernon Hargreaves, but somehow even worse, he causes the other team to be successful on offense. Luckily for the Jaguars, they miss a lot of that because Tyrod Taylor is just not going to throw the ball down the field under almost any circumstance. They do not have explosive rushers. Tyrod's not an explosive player himself. Like they all the stuff that makes Andrew Wingard bad isn't really attacked because the Texans are so bad offensively. Very lucky for them. So yeah, as a rushing game, I already talked about it. It's not very good. And in the passing game, it's just so limited. While there's some chances of success, it's hard for me to see them scoring even 20. I have them range 13 to 20 points. And overall, I feel pretty good. So to explain real quick, these are my tiers. The only ones I actually put money on are the strong ones at the very top. These are ones that I do feel good about, that I'd be comfortable betting, but they're just better options out there. Is the okay tier. Past that week is whatever. If I have to pick a side, and nothing is just like, it's not even worth talking about as far as predicting one way or the other. But yeah, so this game, I do feel comfortable the Jags are going to win this game. They're going to cover 3 points, and that is mostly because they're like not infinite, but tons and tons and tons of advantages for the Jaguars. Is just a straight up way better team. The only thing that gives me pause, again, rookie quarterback, is not worth putting money on because you just don't know. Same thing with the over-under. I would definitely lead towards the under, but Trevor Lawrence might come out and hang 30, so whatever. But that's Jags dub, the first one. So Chargers, Washington football team, a much, much closer or more interesting game. To start with the Chargers offense, you're looking at a pretty good unit here. I fully believe in Justin Herbert. I'm very comfortable with that. The dude was amazing as a rookie. You could see that very early into his rookie year. He's not going to regress, at least as a quality of player. He's very, very, very good. In this matchup specifically, people I think are kind of freaking out about it, but I'm not completely worried. I do think his ceiling is kept down, but let's talk about why. So first, real quick, run game. Chargers suck at running the ball. That's going to continue here, despite being much improved in the offensive line. As a run blocking unit, that's not really the case. Corey Linsley's a big deal, but as he's a center, that only makes so much of a difference. I do need to mention you're starting a rookie tackle, similar to what I talked about with the rookie quarterback and Trevor Lawrence. You just got no clue. Rookie tackles, especially, are another position where most of the time they ain't good in their first game. And while he might be okay, what I can pretty much guarantee you is that there will be mental mistakes. At times, picking up different blitzes, picking up different gaps in the run game. That stuff, it just will happen in his first game. That's not to say that's going to kill their offense. That is important to note that I don't care how good he is, that's going to happen. And yeah, as a running team, they're just can't really compete at the line of scrimmage as far as moving the ball because goddamn, the Washington football team's front four is back. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne are basically elite run defenders in their positions. Montez Sweat is maybe the best edge run defender in the entirety of the NFL, up there with Cameron Jordan, Myles Garrett. So he's better, but whatever. He's really, really good. And Chase Young, that's where he excelled as a rookie. I have some issues with him as a pass rusher that we'll talk about in a second, but whatever. They're going to be crazy good, and that's not even to mention Matt Ioannidis and Tim Settle, the best backup interior line in the entirety of the NFL. And linebackers who normally aren't great, and in fact, normally are kind of bad depending on the situation they're in, who do function here because the Chargers don't do anything fancy running the ball in offense. They run a lot of dumbass draws. They run a lot of soft stuff, basically. And John Bostic, Cole Holcomb, both pretty good. They're going to be able to make plays there. Jamin Davis concerns me a little bit as a rookie linebacker. I'm not all that concerned about it here. The more important, though, right, is the passing game. And there, the Chargers do have paths to success, but it's tough. It starts, obviously, with the pass rush, and there, I'm not, horrified by what's going on with the Washington football team, but it's definitely limiting to the ceiling of this offense, right? Because what my issue is with Chase Young that I mentioned earlier is they just don't get after the passer in the first 2 seconds of a play the way that the super high-end pass rushers around other teams do, the way that a Von Miller does, that a Myles Garrett does, who are winning cleanly and getting right at the quarterback. That doesn't really happen with anyone on this team outside of Matt Ioannidis. Chase Young and Montez Sweat both are very, very useful in their specific roles and do provide a lot as pass rushers, especially, the longer a play goes. They're going to collapse the pocket consistently, that type of shit. Don't get me wrong. But they aren't this dominant for the Bosa brothers is another example that we're going to talk about on the other side of guys who do win like that. Because that's how an individual pass rusher changes the game consistently. And these guys don't do that. So while pass rush is still absolutely an issue, this offensive line, assuming Rashawn Slater isn't complete garbage, they're going to be able to mitigate stuff a little bit. I'm very worried about Matt Ioannidis, who I mentioned earlier. He missed most of last year. That dude's really good. He does win cleanly, and especially with Ode Ibushi, the Chargers one guard. That can get tough. That guy's a little slow-footed, but whatever. Assuming crazy interior pressure off of one player in that type of matchup, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. But yeah, you are talking about a limiting pass rush. And then receiver-wise, Keenan Allen is too good to be meaningfully shut down in any circumstance. But interestingly, him, Mike Williams, and whoever the third receiver is are kind of matched up decently by this Washington football team secondary because of the addition of William Jackson III and the presence of Kendall Fuller. If they do the smart thing, put Jackson III on Mike Williams and Kendall Fuller on Keenan Allen, they do have pretty positive play style matchups that while they're not going to shut the receivers down, they're just too good. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are too good. They can stop them from, over and over getting open, killing them, getting open by a lot, that type of stuff, which is definitely useful. Jalen Guyton, while he's a good deep threat, I do like him as a third receiver. I'm not going to freak out about him as a play driver. We'll see. What does concern me, though, for the football team and why I do give some ability for the Chargers here is that they're starting a rookie corner. Rookie corners suck the vast majority of the time, especially in their first game. And their safety play, while good in a lot of areas, here isn't ideal. Landon Collins and Cam Curl are two guys I like a ton as in-the-box players and guys who can drive on stuff, but as deep safeties, they get a little concerning with how good Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton are down the field and how much Justin Herbert pushes the ball down the field. That could get a little sketchy, especially when this pass rush, while very good, is not going to be making Justin Herbert's life impossible. So I have the Chargers at 16 to 23 points. So we ain't talking about a lot here, but don't expect them to get shut down. Their weapons are just too good, and their offensive line is clearly better than it was last year. On the other side of the ball, they're also an interesting spot, but frankly, I think they're maybe even worse off than the Chargers are, right? Because you start first, again, with running the ball, and that's tough. Their offensive line is not built to run the ball very well. They're okay on the interior. Brandon Scherf, I do like. Chase Roulier, Eric Flowers are reasonable starting-level players, but none of them are super difference makers. Scherf is close, but he's not Quentin Nelson. He's not Brandon Brooks. But more importantly, at tackle, we were talking about a rookie tackle I talked about on the other side, but this one's even of a lower pedigree. And then Charles Leno. Charles Leno is a very good modern player as far as being a positive pass protector. As a run blocker, though, nope. he just doesn't do it very well. He's not particularly strong or fleet of foot. So that's kind of an issue, especially against a Chargers front that is low-key really, really good. Well, that's a little strong, but pretty good. So you have Linval Joseph back at nose tackle, who's not going to get bullied in this game. He's going to be able to stand up. Justin Jones, a super underrated player. Justin Jones is very, very good if you don't know that name. He's an interior defensive lineman who consistently makes plays. He controls offensive linemen. He gets in the backfield. He will make plays in this game by virtue of just being better than the guards he's matched up against, or equal to with Scherf. And he's really good. They have Christian Covington as a backup, who another super underrated guy who does a lot of similar things. And Jerry Tillery. Jerry Tillery was thought of as a first-round bust, and I am worried about them moving him back inside after they really unlocked something with him, moving him to kind of full-time defensive end last year. He was drafted as a defensive tackle. He's a really fucking big guy for a defensive end. But with them, in the 3-4, if they keep him towards the tackle spot, he showed a lot of positive ability as a guy who could use his strength in that area to kind of get in the backfield and make plays. So I do like them a lot. And then with a fully healthy Joey Bosa, you have a absolute dominant player on the edge. And Uchenna Nwosu, and between him and Kyler Fackrell are both plus starters at the very least. So with that Washington offensive line, it's just not going to end up going that well. They're not going to be able to run the ball particularly well. It's not impossible. The Chargers aren't elite as a run defense, but I also say the Chargers linebacker is pretty good. Drew Tranquill back from injury. That guy's kind of underrated himself. Really good. Kenneth Murray was probably the best rookie linebacker last year. So they're chilling, plus Derwin James. As a passing team, the more important one, we look at the pass rush first, and that scares me. It really does, because on the interior, while all those guys are competent, I'm telling you, Justin Jones is freaking good. Jerry Tillery might have something himself. And on the edge, the really scary one, Joey Bosa, while I mentioned Charles Leno as a positive player, Joey Bosa is just way the fuck better than him. And so he's going to be in the backfield very consistently, very quickly. And then on the other side, a rookie tackle, Joey Bosa will also murder him. And Nwosu is good enough to meaningfully beat both of those guys. So there's real edge rush combined with decent in the pocket. And while Ryan Fitzpatrick does deal with pressure okay, especially compared to a lot of younger quarterbacks, he's not Aaron Rodgers out here. He can still get forced into dumb stuff. And I have a whole tirade on the Washington football team's team preview, talking about how Ryan Fitzpatrick is way more of a like in the flow of the offense, short throwing quarterback than people think he is. And that does matter here. I'm not really going to get into it. I'm just going to say that is the case. By the way, Ryan Fitzpatrick actually going to function a lot more in the flow of this offense than people expect. That's not exactly ideal, though, here. Because Curtis Samuel on IR. So you're talking about Terry McLaurin, Cam Sims, who's actually number 11, and Adam Humphries against this Chargers secondary. That's, it's okay. Terry McLaurin's way, way better than anyone on the Chargers. I will say Michael Davis is a reasonable corner as your number one. I don't know about that. But we've seen what this team gets with Terry McLaurin as its only valuable receiver. And that's a little bit where you are now. Adam Humphries does do decent things. He's a starting level player who can work in the slot. Cam Sims, though, man, that's tough as an outside receiver. He's just not going to separate or offer an advantage for your offense. And, we'll see with De'Ami Brown. He's a rookie, but the Chargers don't ask a ton from their corners. They're not this like tight press man coverage team. They play a lot of zone. They play a lot of smart, complicated zone. They do a lot of smart things defensively, or at least they have. And they get the Rams defensive coordinator now as their head coach, so that's likely to continue. And frankly, I'm not outside of Terry McLaurin. I'm not that concerned. Like I said, Chris Harris, I have problems with against elite receivers. He can handle Adam Humphries at least to a point. And I don't think this Washington offense has a lot of ability down the field in this matchup because Chargers have good safeties, especially Derwin James, and they have enough pass rush to limit stuff. So I don't think it's impossible. I have the football team at 14 to 21 points. So I do think, according to as the line states, it's going to be a really, really close game, or at least it should be. But I would end up taking the Chargers because I see a lot more paths for the Chargers to be successful offensively than I do for the Washington football team, at least in terms of actually scoring touchdowns. I do like the under, though, for sure. Both these defenses much better than their respective offenses on the other side of the ball. So next game, Seahawks Colts. This one is super interesting to me, for sure, as they all are. We talk week one in the NFL, right? This is dope stuff, but this one specifically is kind of it's unknown in a lot of ways, right? Because you're looking at a Seahawks team that is making the biggest change that they could have made, which is an offensive scheme change. This was a team that ran the dumbest offense in the entirety of the NFL for years. Now moving to something that is modern and theoretically resembles what the Rams, 49ers teams that know what they're doing offensively do. We'll see how that transition goes, which is part of why I'm not totally in on like betting on this game. But it's interesting. And then obviously on the other side, you get Carson Wentz, a new starter with the Colts. Colts do positive things offensively. He's kind of unknown a little bit by himself. So a lot of cool things about this game. But let's start with the Seahawks offense here. Rushing the ball is still going to be tough. Their interior guys can create some movement against a lot of teams and will be positives at times. Not here. And their tackles are really whatever as run blockers. Brandon Shell's a little okay, but again, when you look at this Colts front four, that's kind of why they make their money. DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart are almost as good as you're going to find as interior guys. We talked about the Washington football team earlier. That's better. But outside of that, man, DeForest Buckner as a run player is absolutely elite. Grover Stewart, really, really good as a nose tackle. Like they get dudes there. On the edge, Al-Qadim Muhammad is really one of the most one-sided players in the NFL. Really bad pass rusher, but really, really, really good run defender. And, on the other side, that's a concern. It's definitely not as good as it was when they were starting Denico Autry last year, which is a concern I have with the Colts on the whole with this year. In this game, though, I don't know if that's going to come up so much. Kwity Paye, first-round rookie. Tyquan Lewis is a guy who's played on the interior before. They're probably going to be okay there. And more importantly, with the presence of Darius Leonard, Bobby Okereke, two guys who are very, very good, especially obviously Darius Leonard. And even Zaire Franklin played some okay snaps as their third linebacker. They're going to have enough to work hard and limit the Seahawks' kind of bad rushing game anyway. And also I got to mention just as a defense as a whole, they're very well coached, very disciplined. That type of stuff helps a lot in run defense. Passing game, it's tough for the Colts, but it's also kind of tough for the Seahawks because the Seahawks, right, are really dependent on Russell Wilson creating plays outside of the flow of the offense. That is obvious. I'm not saying anything new there. Well, what's the number one way to limit that generally is to play a disciplined safe, soft zone that pretty much forces Russell to take short options, which the Colts do. That only works, though, if you get a meaningful pass rush to keep your zone from breaking down, as all zones do over time. Or if talent-wise you can actually compete, because you can play zone coverage all you want, but obviously you still have to cover guys, right? And those latter two are where the Colts run into issues. As a pass rushing team, it's just not really here anymore. That is the difference between the Colts last year and the Colts this year. While they weren't even elite last year, they at least had Justin Houston, who was still a positive player. Denico Autry did some okay things. Now, on the interior, DeForest Buckner is not an elite pass rusher. People talk about him like he is. He's very good. He's a top 10 guy, whatever. There's a clear difference between him and an actual elite player, and that matters. Their other interior guys don't offer really anything. Grover Stewart's a run-only player. And on the edge, Kwity Paye might be good. Some defensive rookies or defensive end rookies are good. I'm definitely not going to assume that. Al-Qadim Muhammad I already talked about. I'm not worried about Tyquan Lewis, Ben Banigou. Not much edge rush. And frankly, while Brandon Shell concerns me, I don't know if he concerns me that much in this matchup. And they're just overall going to be fine, which is kind of what Russell Wilson, that's kind of what you need, especially when the Colts are starting Rock Ya-Sin at corner. Xavier Rhodes is going to be out this game, which is a really big deal. Xavier Rhodes gets up for matchups exactly like DK Metcalf. That is the exact type of player that, for whatever reason, when he sucks a bunch of other times, he will step up. He will use his big physical body to actually meaningfully control those types of receivers. Rock Ya-Sin tries the same shit, but he sucks at it. And DK Metcalf is going to eat his lunch consistently, and that really sucks for them. TJ Carey is actually a reasonable matchup on Tyler Lockett. TJ Carey's kind of underrated. He's pretty good. Kenny Moore is extremely good. So same thing. But Tyler Lockett makes his money again as a player after the initial route tree, and that still is the case here. And he's more than good enough to, get the better of TJ Carey at times. So that's where you see interesting results of the Seahawks, because they are going to be limited by the Colts defensive scheme, but overall, over the course of a game, it's really tough to see that holding up without the pass rush or the actual downfield coverage ability. So I have the Seahawks at 20 to 27 points. Their ceiling as an offense I'm still concerned about until I see proof that they're better coached. Colts offensively, it's an interesting one there as well, right? Because you're talking about 4/5 of one of the better offensive lines in football still together. Big deal. Anthony Castonzo retiring, though. They replace him with a late trade of Matt Pryor, who I would assume is going to start in this game. Their other option I didn't put on here is Julian Davenport. You can throw a lot of stuff out if he actually plays. That guy is really, really bad. But I'm just going to assume it's Matt Pryor. So they're still going to be able to move the ball on the ground, because those guys are all very positives at their positions as run blockers. This Colts do smart things as a running team. It's not on the level of the 49ers or the Rams, whatever. It's up there. They're pretty good at it. And the Seahawks are kind of just okay on their defensive front. Their interior guys are whatever, capable, but definitely not playmakers, and definitely not of the level that Quentin Nelson or Ryan Kelly are. And their edge defenders, I do need to mention, actually, with this depth chart, that the Seahawks are going to play a 5-2, I'm pretty sure, this year. You see that linebacker with Rasheem Green, that shit down there. Those guys are going to be walked up on the line of scrimmage. That's what they ended up doing the vast majority of the second half of last year anyway. And it does work for them. It puts guys like LJ Collier, Kerry Hyder, Benson Mayowa in a lot better positions than they are otherwise. But with the Colts, right, you're talking about matching up with their strength at the line and making actual plays behind the line of scrimmage. I don't necessarily see that much here. They're going to be fine. Those guys I mentioned earlier, Collier, Kerry Hyder, Benson Mayowa, are all reasonable players against the run, and they're going to do okay, but none of them are going to stand up and be like, hey, you're not running here. So you're going to see the Colts be able to run the ball to a point. Bobby Wagner obviously helps, still an elite middle linebacker. But Jordan Brooks, man, he was not very good as a rookie. And they are going to miss KJ Wright. is the way that I'm going to talk about that. Jordan Brooks did some okay things, especially by the end of the year. He was better. Most rookie linebackers aren't very good. I can see him being better than I think of him right now. But going into the first game against a team that runs the ball well, I'm not super encouraged. So that's a little scary. Jamal Adams, though, I do need to mention the exact type of player who makes up for a lot of that, functions as a kind of a third, fourth linebacker, depending on the personnel you're in, and meaningfully makes plays against a team like the Colts. Passing-wise, the more important one, hard for me to say or put a lot of stock into my prediction because Carson Wentz has not played in this offense yet. I'm not that encouraged, though, at least in this matchup, because without T.Y. Hilton, you're just talking about receivers who don't win down the field. And you're talking about a quarterback who pushes the ball down the field into dangerous situations sometimes. That is a bad combination. Carson Wentz will be able to function in the flow of this offense. I'm very sure about that. He's smarter than people give him credit for. He's going to do a lot of positive things with that way. This offense, like I mentioned, does do positive things with that. They're going to make space for Paris Campbell, for the tight ends near the line of scrimmage, and they're going to do okay. That only gets you so far, though. Again, Carson Wentz has this propensity to not follow exactly what the offense wants him to do, to push the ball down the field. And as I mentioned, these Colts receivers are just not good enough at that. Paris Campbell, maybe, he doesn't have a large sample size. He does have the athleticism required, but as a true winner in his routes, I don't really see it. Michael Pittman Jr., Zach Pascal are guys who are super limited once you get past like 5 yards. Michael Pittman, he's okay. He has the size to play out there, but the Seahawks made actual smart decisions at corner, unbelievably. One of the most impressive things I've seen. This goes from one of the worst corner rooms in the entirety of the NFL to one that's at least serviceable. DJ Reed is a good player. Sidney Jones, I trade for the Jags. Still a little sketchy as one of these big outside press corners who isn't all that good at pressing, but he's better than what they've had. Trey Flowers is still the bad one, but Bleshwan Austin, too, can play a little bit. Like, they're getting better there. And in this matchup, Trey Flowers, for the issues I have with him, he can keep up with Zach Pascal and Michael Pittman. Those are the exact type of receivers he's made for. So they don't really hurt the Seahawks in that way. And Seahawks safety is really good. Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, both like high-level players at their respective positions. So it's just tough to see the Colts winning down the field in any meaningful amount of time. And that's why I only have them 17 to 24 points. I do think it'll still work. The Seahawks defense is not like scary. And there are positive things about what Frank Reich does that I'm going to give them credit for. But when it comes down to it, I do have the Seahawks winning this game. The Seahawks are still idiots until proven otherwise, which is why I'm not putting this feeling strongly. Same with the under 49. Too much change with both respective offenses for me to be very sure, but I definitely do like the under. And reason the Seahawks -3 is different in different tiers because Seahawks have a real tendency to win a lot of games with the last second field goal. That doesn't necessarily put them up by 3. So I don't like betting on the Seahawks to cover spreads. Next one, Jets-Panthers. Another game that you're talking about a rookie quarterback, so I'm not going to go crazy on. But another one where if said rookie quarterback is good, you're like sitting pretty. This team is not going to be amazing about running the ball, but there's actually chances. Mekhi Becton is an absolute fucking monster in the run game. He kills people. Elijah Vera Tucker, rookie guard. We'll see. A lot of people like him. He has a chance to be decent. And their other spots aren't bad enough to tank them. I really don't like Connor McGovern as a center, but he's not quite bad enough for like he's a center or whatever. Greg Van Roten is a little bit underrated, I think. He was hurt some last year. I understand he's not a super great player, but especially in the run game, he can do a little bit of work. And against this Carolina defense, man, you can do some work on the ground. They're better than they were last year probably, but outside of the two interior guys, like where are you really making plays? Derek Brown I like a ton, but you can only get so far with an interior player who isn't Aaron Donald, as I mentioned before. Daquan Jones is more of like a safe veteran who is reasonable, but their edge guys, Brian Burns, I like to make plays at times, but he does still struggle with play strength a little bit as far as being the point of attack. He's not ideal. And their other edge, Morgan Fox, is I like him a lot as a rotational interior pass rusher. As a full-time starting edge, we'll see. Their backups aren't particularly notable in that area. Hassan Reddick should not be playing stand-up linebacker under any circumstances. I don't necessarily know what they're going to do with him, but I don't trust them. Shaq Thompson is sketchy as a linebacker at best in the run game. He gets smoked a lot. Even when he was playing next to Luke Kuechly, he was still bad enough at times for them to give up rushing. Like, And then Jermaine Carter is a super slow, like, linebacker from the 80s, so I don't, again, trust at all. He maybe could play between the tackles okay. So the point is that, especially on the edges, with speed, the Panthers can struggle. Now, Jets aren't really built to take advantage of that, but they're not so bad that it's nothing. Passing-wise, listen, the Panthers suck still as a passing defense, basically, right? You're talking about pass rush first. What is there? Derek Brown, again, is a little bit scary, but come on. Brian Burns is very, very good. I don't want to gloss over him, but these Jets tackles are fine. Mekhi Becton's very, very good. And frankly, George Fant, people like shit on him for some reason. He is more than competent as a player, especially as a guy who can match up with true speed rushers. He's fine. And if they end up playing Morgan Moses, that concerns me a little bit more. But again, it's not like this awful, awful thing. On the other side, those tackles are definitely better than Morgan Fox. Cedar Gross-Matos did nice things as a rookie. He could get a lot better. I'm a little worried about him, but not to like this crazy extent. And then Hassan Reddick's just bad. Like, I don't want to get all the way into him right now, but the dude is just an effort player that effectively lucked into 1 million sacks last year. And yeah, he's useful. He'll try hard and shit, but not a scary pressure source. And in the secondary, they're just still really bad. You were talking about Dante Jackson, who is not a starting level corner in the NFL, will consistently lose. J.C. Horn is a rookie in his first game. That's tough. They're starting, looks like right now, Miles Hartsfield, who is a former running back, then safety, who didn't play very well. He wasn't horrible, but wasn't all that good as a safety. And you're asking him to be a slot corner. And then you're still starting Justin Burris, who's still bad as a coverage player, and Jeremy Chin, who I didn't mention before, is helpful against the run and overall is a good player. But asking him to go back to safety is not a decision that I agree with, because his coverage range, once you get into that deep of the field, I'm not convinced of yet. He could be better, I'm getting credit for, but it's not like an ideal circumstance. So yeah, with not all that much pass rush, a secondary that can be targeted, and receivers who are at least reasonable. Corey Davis is fine. Keelan Cole is actually pretty good. He's going to beat the Panthers corners. And Denzel Mims, frankly, is a player who was hurt and kind of got wrote off after his rookie year, but the dude can play a little bit. And frankly, Elijah Moore is a rookie, whatever, we'll see. But like they're weapons. And if Zach Wilson doesn't suck, they're going to be able to move the ball. Other side of the coin, similar story where I have issues with like the Panthers against some teams, but here, rushing the ball. Listen, they're not going to be great at the line of scrimmage. Pat Elflein, Cam Irving is starting from this team. What the fuck? Those guys are really, really bad. But, other than that, Paradis is fine. Dennis Daly is actually a player I like, kind of. Taylor Moton's an elite tackle. Like, they can do a little bit, especially because the Jets run into issues once you get to their second level. Their front four is pretty damn good. Sheldon Rankins, Quentin Williams, Fadakasi as an interior trio are very high end. John Franklin Myers, super underrated. That guy's awesome as both a run defender and pass rusher. And they do trade for Shaq Lawson, which is super smart. Shaq Lawson's a very good player. I don't know how much he's going to play in this game. They just traded for him within the last week. Sometimes, we'll see if he plays, though. Huge positive, especially in the run game. It's past that. You're starting 2 rookie late round linebackers who were safeties in college. Yeah, maybe, but I wouldn't be excited, especially against Christian McCaffrey. Normally, I don't talk about running backs. I will talk about Christian McCaffrey, best running back in the league. He will smoke these guys very badly, and that is really scary. So, yeah, you're going to be able to run the ball at least to a point. You do still have to overcome a really bad left side of your offensive line, but there are enough advantages to get you there. As a pass team, again, I don't love the Panthers, but what pass rush is there? Well, there's John Franklin Myers. If Shaq Lawson plays, and Quentin Williams is super. I kind of glossed over it before. Quentin Williams is an elite player too. But none of them are like these super high end guys. Taylor Moton is going to be just fine on his edge. And the other, well, I don't like Cam Irving at all. Pat Elflein's really bad. The Jets pass rushers just aren't like to the level where they're taking that weakness and making it like unlivable for Sam Darnold. And more importantly, maybe Panthers have a huge advantage at receiver. DJ Moore is definitely a good player. Robbie Anderson is a very good player. Terrace Marshall's a rookie people like. And more importantly, the Jets have one corner who I can reasonably say doesn't suck. And he is just okay. Bryce Hall was pretty good as a rookie, actually. I do like him, but what the fuck? He's your number one corner, and then you have 3 guys who are not higher on draft picks competing for that second spot. They're going to be rotated through, and Yeah, against Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore is just not going to go well. Plus, in the slot, I guess it's going to be Javelin Guidry, who has like barely played actual defensive snaps in his career. So that's where the Panthers really have an advantage, and they're going to have guys who do win quickly near the line of scrimmage, which further limits how much a pass rush is going to hurt Sam Darnold. Now, Sam Darnold still sucks. He's going to limit the offense as a whole, but here he's actually uniquely positioned to succeed. And in the passing game, I mentioned Christian McCaffrey against those linebackers earlier. Yeah, if you think that's bad, as far as a receiver, he's going to kill those guys. And CJ Mosley, whatever, hasn't played in 2 years, is kind of a slow interior linebacker. He cannot keep up with Christian McCaffrey in any meaningful sense. So there's a lot of ways for Sam Darnold to fairly easily drive the ball up and down the field. So in the end, I have them at I have them at 25 to 32 points. That's as high as you will ever see me go with a Sam Darnold-led team pretty much, but they are pretty uniquely designed to go a little crazy here. And I didn't mention it earlier, but I had the Jets at 20-27, but that's a rookie quarterback thing. And so again, the Jets could easily win this game. And that's why the 4.5 is just too much. I'm not going to bet on it. Rookie quarterback. No idea if he's good. So whatever. But like the Jets can absolutely win this game if Zach Wilson is reasonable. And for as much as I like what the Carolina Panthers can do offensively, you're still talking about Sam Darnold, who still sucks, and a team that is playing Cam Irvin and Pat Elflein as starting offensive linemen. So, yeah, I do like the over, though. Both of these teams are super, super weak or vulnerable defensively, and the number's pretty low, 45. So, whatever. This game is a coin flip completely as far as I'm concerned because of the Zach Wilson thing. But, so that's my first 4 games previewed. And, week 1, let's go.